Has this ever happened to you? You're going for a lovely walk through the Romanian countryside late at night when out from behind a tree pops your uncle who's been dead for 5 years. And you say, "Uncle Dave, oh my God, you've been dead for 5 years, how you doing?" And instead of responding, he sucks the blood directly out of your heart. If this has happened to you, you may have been visited by a strigoi. The Romanian word strigoi translates roughly to one who has risen from the grave. And as the name suggests, they are spirits who have risen from the grave. They are rumored to have the ability to become invisible, transform into animals, and to gain vitality from drinking the blood of living humans. Our modern vampire myth as we know it is based off of the strigoi, and that's thanks to one famous Irishman writing one famous book, Bram Stoker's Dracula. It's speculated that the majority of what we now hold to be true for vampires is based off of Bram Stoker's understanding of Romanian strigoi lore. There are two different kinds of strigoi, but for simplicity's sake, I'm going to be talking about Strigoi mort for this video. I'll quickly touch on Strigoi Vii at the end. The earliest mention of a creature believed to be Strigoi was not in Transylvania as one might assume. Instead, our story first takes place about 600 miles away in what is now Croatia. This is the story of a village called Kringa and a man named Jure Grando Alilovic, a name which I have said in the mirror dozens of times trying to be able to pronounce correctly, and I have no idea if I said it right. It is said that Jure died in 1656 at the age of 77 due to an unknown illness, but didn't feel like staying dead for some reason. And he returned to terrorize his home village of Kringa for 16 years in the form of, as the Croatians would call it, strigon. Jure appeared in his widow's bedroom on multiple occasions, and she described his corpse-like image as smiling and as though he was gasping for breath. The man who had buried Jure, the village's priest, Giorgio, whose name I also practiced in the mirror, discovered at night that somebody would knock on doors around the village, and within a few days, one of the residents of that home would die. One night, Jure was spotted, and the bravest of the village laid chase and attempted to kill the strigon by piercing its heart with a sharpened stick made of hawthorn wood. But the attempt failed, with the stick bouncing right off the creature's chest. The next night, 9 of the villagers went to the graveyard carrying lamps, a cross, and the hawthorn stick again. They exhumed Jure's body and found it perfectly preserved, smiling. Holding up a crucifix, Father Giorgio exclaimed, "Look, strigon, there is Jesus Christ who has saved us from hell and died for us. And for you, strigon, you cannot have peace," he exclaimed in the worst Croatian accent you've ever heard. Then he attempted to pierce the chest again with the hawthorn stick, and once again, it didn't work. After the priest recited some exorcism prayers to no visible effect, one of the villagers present, Stipan Milosic, decided to take matters into his own hand and left to go get his saw. According to the legend, peace returned to Kringa after Jure's corpse was decapitated. In 1909, Franz Hartmann mentioned in his book, An Authenticated Vampire Story, that peasant children in the Carpathian Mountains were mysteriously dying. Frightened villagers suspected that the recently deceased count was to blame, and believing that he still inhabited the now abandoned castle, they burned it down in an attempt to stop the deaths. No word on whether it worked or not. In 1969, in the city of 1969 in the city of
Căpățâneni Pământeni. Căpățâneni Pământeni.
That's not words. That's not even close to being real words. In 1969 in the city of
Căpățâneni Pământeni.
Several family members of a recently deceased man began to die under suspicious circumstances. When the man's body was unearthed, it showed no signs of decomposition. The eyes were open and his face was red and twisted. The corpse was burned in an attempt to save his soul. This is the most recent Strigoi story I could find. In February of 2004, a woman revealed that she had been visited by her recently deceased uncle, a formerly 76-year-old Romanian man by the name of Peter Toma, a name that, once again, I practiced and probably am still pronouncing wrong. Shortly after the visitation by Peter, the woman fell ill with a mysterious illness that no one could diagnose, and the family naturally blamed Peter himself. He was a Strigoi. He must have done it. One night, just before midnight, 6 of the men in the village decided that they were going to do something about it. This is the fun part. They exhumed the body, and after performing a, quote, centuries-old ritual, they broke open Peter's ribs, removed his heart, they sprinkled his body with garlic and staked each limb down to the coffin. The heart was then burned, and the ashes were mixed with water and was drank by the 6 men as well as the aforementioned ill woman. The 6 men were eventually arrested for, quote, disturbing the peace of the dead, but never actually served any time. This is my 4th take, so I'm just not going to try and do the accent. No one is bothered who did it. This is my 5th take, so I'm just not going to try and bother with the accent on this one, and hopefully I don't sound like an absolute idiot. No one was bothered by who did it. It's their business. This ritual often takes place, but in secret, within the family. The problem comes when the police get involved, 80-year-old Tudor Stoica said in an interview with The Guardian newspaper. As Mr. Stoica alluded, it seems that superstition is still strong in some of the more rural areas of Romania, and it's rumored that the only reason that any measures were taken in this case was because the Romanian government was worried that the incident would affect their bid to join the European Union. I've told you a couple stories about Strigoi, but what are they really? How are they different from the American idea of a vampire? What would be on their Pokemon Wiki stat page? There are a lot of conflicting sources on what the Strigoi really is, and most of these sources contradict themselves at some point as well. In an 1865 article on Transylvanian folklore by Wilhelm Schmidt, the Strigoi is described as a nocturnal creature that preys on infants. He tells of a tradition where after a child is born, someone must throw a rock over their shoulder and shout, "This one for the mouth of the Strigoi." Most of the sources I've found don't say anything about Strigoi attacking newborns, but instead they go after the people that were close to them when they were alive, tormenting family members and attacking neighbors. The Strigoi is not physical like the vampires we know and love, but they're spirits of the dead, passing through multiple stages on their way, hopefully, back to life. First, the Strigoi may be invisible, harassing its family in a fashion similar to a poltergeist, moving furniture and stealing food. After being an annoying asshole for a while, it becomes visible again, looking just as it did in life. Once again, it returns to its family, begging for food, stealing cattle, and bringing disease. Then the spirit begins to feed on humans. First its family, then neighbors, and then anybody it can find. Some accounts have it sucking blood directly from the heart of its victims. Although the Strigoi is not fond of light, it's not deadly to it. It seems more as if it's afraid of light, with travelers being safe so long as they stayed close to a campfire kept burning throughout the night. While garlic is used in some cases to prevent a Strigoi from rising, no one ever said it would stop one from biting you. If you're looking for something that'll protect you as well as satisfy your late night hunger, what you're looking for is a pig killed on October 17th, which, as we all know, is St. Ignatius's Day. The meat is said to keep the Strigoi at bed, and the fat of the pig can be used to prevent it from rising at all. The spirit must return to its grave each day to rest, but after 7 years, this may no longer be necessary. It's said that after 7 years, the Strigoi will be able to regain physical form, stop preying on humans, and leave its old home behind, regaining life and humanity in the form of a Strigoi Vii. Once it regains its humanity, it can move to a new land, marry, and even have children. Though they won't be fully human either, they'll be Strigoi Vii as well. I'll talk about Strigoi Vii in just a moment, but first, how is a Strigoi made? There are 6 ways to become a Strigoi. First is to be born as a Strigoi Vii, either by being born to Strigoi parents, having a birth defect, or being the 7th child of the same sex in one family, which, as we all know, makes you fucking evil. The second way is to lead a life of sin. This seems to be a common theme in Romanian folklore. Die an asshole, be reborn as an asshole. Third, die without ever getting married. Fourth, is if you're executed for perjury. Fifth is suicide. Sixth is to die by a witch's curse. But let's say you've already got a Strigoi on your hands. Uncle Dave was never married, and he called a witch guacamole face right before he killed himself. First thing you're going to want to do is grab your trusty exhumation shovel and put it to good use. I guess I should go ahead and let you know that this next part is kind of gross. So after you exhume, what you're going to want to do is get that heart on out of there and cut it in two. We saved the worst for first, so the rest of this shouldn't be too hard. Next thing you're going to want to do is drive a nail directly into his forehead, which the emotional toll won't be nearly as bad as if you hadn't have ripped your uncle's heart out already. Next, place a clove of garlic under your uncle's tongue, because no vampire myth would be complete without at least a little bit of garlic. You're almost done. Next thing you're going to want to do is cover the body in the fat of a pig slaughtered on which day of the year? Your teacher will now pause this video and give you time to answer. That's correct, October 17th, St. Ignatius' Day. And last but most importantly, flip the body face down. That way, in case none of the horrible things you've just done work, at least they'll be digging the wrong way when they wake up. Congratulations! If you've made it this far, you should now be able to identify a Strigoi, kill a Strigoi, and threaten Romania's chances of joining the European Union. Now, last thing, I'll tell you about Strigoi Vii. A Strigoi Vii is basically just someone who's currently alive who will become a Strigoi when they die.